Good afternoon, happy Saturday, keepers of the cash. Gary B, the Casual Comic Guy here, and we're here with Savage Saturday Comic Review number 80. And this week, guys, we're continuing the first story arc that had Zula in the Conan comics. Yes, it's a long one. It's a great one. I really enjoy it, and it's within that sweet spot of Conan history between issues 58 and 100, which is my favorite run of comics ever. Now, a lot of great characters. Of course, Billy is one of my favorites. But let's take a look at this cover. We have cover art by John Buscema with inks by Irv Watanabe, and it's a stunner, right? You got all the classic elements. You got sword and sorcery. You have horror, and let's just take a look. Look at that. This is from 1978, 35 cents, newsstand edition. I got two newsies, and just what a fabulous cover. Let's get a little closer. You got the giant behind them. You have Conan and Billy. You have the bats coming in. A lot going on. Spectacular display of artistry by John Buscema and incredible inks by Irv Watanabe. But let's get inside. So in this part, it's called The Diadem of the Giant Kings. You have Roy Thomas as the writer and editor, John Buscema and Ernie Chan inking him. So the Dream Team. All right. So this is opening up with them on the sea from the ship they stole at the end of the last issue when they were fleeing from Tathiman and Zephrah to get out of Luxor with their lives from the catacombs. So there was a lot going on last issue, and this issue starts out just as busy. So we got a great panel right here to start it all out. Conan, Billy, Zula, and they have a boat full of Stygians that are rowing for them after they sue the person that was in charge of the boat. So they're making their escape, and they're coming up past the city of Kashada, which is where first Belit was imprisoned and escaped with Zephrah, who was pretending to be a slave at the time and is now king of Luxor, and where Conan ended up being thrown into dungeons to try to make Belit return and come back, and where he first met Zula. So a lot of callbacks to issue 75 on this second page where it all started, right? Or 74, 75. But they're going by in the boat, and they can't believe they're not being attacked. But it's because Conan and Belit helped put a new ruler in place, Marath, and they helped him overthrow his evil brother, who would send hawks with riders on them out to pillage the ships that were going by. So they're kind of making their way by, and they're just trying to go by unnoticed, and at some point you have the feeling that things are going to get corrected there. But they throw ashore, so it's all on this page. And Conan makes the crew a promise. Look, we have to get across this land to the other side where the Corsairs, their own crew, are meeting them. He says, and if you get us across and you don't try to run, you will then have your freedom. And they know that if they try to run, then they'll have their death. Conan, Billy, and Zula will cut them down. All right, so these were the part of the parties that were against them in Stygia, and now they are forced to work with Conan, Billy, and Zula. And then on the next page, you see them trekking out, and you see Tathiman conferring with Zephrah, who is now King Sestafan the second or third. I can never remember which one it is. Either way, it does not matter. But they have Peter Nubis, who is a sorcerer where Zula, Billy, and Conan are headed. And that just happens to be the sorcerer that Zula was a slave to. So he's got a reckoning coming with Zula. But Tathiman is going to confer with him. As you can see here on this page, we'll just confirm with him to make sure that he knows Conan and Belit are on the way and that they should be slain along with Zula. And then we go back to our guys, Conan, Belit, and Zula, who are making their way across when an earthquake strikes. Now the Stygians, they're afraid to be in that land. They think that it's cursed and that they're not allowed to be there. And they think that the earthquake is not just an earthquake. They think it's the god striking out at them. The god Set, the snake god. Billy and Conan don't care about that. So as the earth cracks, you have people in breaks, you have a chasm open up, and one of the guys falls down. He happens to have the provisions. Conan says, Billy, I didn't know you would try to save a Stygian. She goes, he had the provisions. It wasn't for him I was trying. She couldn't hold on to him, and they have to lower themselves down to get the provisions. But once down there, they're in this chasm, and Belit wanders off, and then he hears a scream. So he runs in there, and Belit is over this altar, which has inscriptions on it. And she sees a skeleton and cries out, and Conan's like, it's a tomb with a skeleton near it. That's usually where they are. She goes, not 15 feet long skeletons, and that's where Conan is finally aghast at what they see. Zula comes down, is equally in horror, but where there's a tomb, there's usually treasure. So they crack open the tomb, and they see the diadem of kings. Conan knows what it is. The diadem of the giant kings, he says. And one of the Stygians said, many have died searching for the giant king's tomb. There was a curse that, and Belit's like, one more word about Stygian curses, and I'll seal that altar top back with a few Stygians inside. So she's threatening them. Look, you'll be in this tomb. You'll be sealed. You're not getting out. So that shuts him up. And Belit says, Zula, watch these whimpering dogs for a minute, will you? And Conan and Belit set off to see if there's any more tombs and any more treasure where that comes from. Now, as they're perusing the cavern, they see all the bats up top, which Conan makes note of, but there's thousands and thousands of bats filling up this cavern. Then we move on to the next page, and one of the Stygians, who's scared to be there, throws a rock at Zula and knocks him unconscious. And they go for the treasure themselves, but once they touch the treasure, the diadem of the giant kings, of course, it does have a curse on it. And what happens then is all the flesh starts reforming on the 15-foot skeleton until it is wholly the giant again, come back to life, one of the living dead, and he is there to eat them now. He is just hungry. He's been dead for a while, forced with his curse to sit there in death and just watch the people go by him. So when they're running and making their escape, they run across Conan again, who stops them, and he heads back. And him and Belit see the giant there with poor Zula in his grasp. He's about to eat him. And Conan plays on the giant's fear, and he says, go ahead, eat him, devour him. And Belit's like, Conan, what? Conan says, his meat is black, poisoned. So Conan is playing on the prejudices of these giants that he knows of from his past encounters. He says, go on, eat him, and die a second time. It works. The giant thinks on it a second and then tosses Zula aside. So Zula's life is saved, and Zula finally regains consciousness from being clocked with the rock and rejoins Conan and Belit. And the giant king puts on the diadem and starts eating the other Stygians that are there. Zula makes his way up a rope, and he's out, the rope that they descended upon. And Conan and Belit are telling him to hold up there and wait for them. And just a lot of good action. And Conan runs back, and he is hell-bent, along with Belit, on slaying this giant king. So they're both fighting. They're getting tossed aside. Belit fighting fiercely by her lover's side. And they're just giving this guy complete hell. But just when they are about to lose, Conan tells Belit to wait for a second, and that they must stand together. And she wants to attack him again, and Conan's like, just wait. And she's like, have you gone mad? We'll only tire ourselves. Then be easy pickings. He's like, don't argue with me, woman. Just keep ducking. And it's not in Belit's nature to be cowed, but she is this time. And as she ducks down, the bats come free. And once the thousands swarm, the Giant King is no match for them, as Conan and Belit lay flat while the bats are in the air, and they tear apart the Giant King. And then they make their way out with Zula as the Giant King is reaching for Conan, who's still not dead. But Conan, in one last effort, takes his sword and throws it through the other eye of the giant, who is now going to be cursed to live down there blind. And they make their escape to live another day and to make their way to Ascalon to find Belit's father, who was overthrown by his uncle, and who the magician Peter Nubis, or Nubert, whatever his name is, he is there as his uncle's magician, who Zula wants to slay. So you got a lot of revenge coming up in the next couple issues. You got Zula facing off with his enslaver. You're going to have Belit and Conan facing off with the evil uncle who killed her father and imprisoned him. And a big setup, a lot going on. And this issue is a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun on a lot of different levels. Not only is the story fun by Roy Thomas, who is just an exceptional writer. You'll never hear me say otherwise. So, biased for sure. But, sorry, I put new bags on them. But the art by John Buscema and Ernie Chan, as always, is A++. And this is when John Buscema and Ernie Chan were really dialed into Conan. They were really... John Buscema loved this character. He loved working on him, and it showed in the detail and the scope and just the way he handled the title. And the way he handled him when he did him in The Savage Sword of Conan or whatever else he did. It was just one of John Buscema's most favorite characters to work on. He didn't care as much for the heroes, but he did love working on Conan. All that comes through, especially in these issues 58 through 100 on the issues that he worked on. They're absolutely spectacular. A joy to behold. So a great story continuing the setup for the final conflict that's to come. So I'd say a B+ issue because it's just a setup issue for the finale that's on the way. But the setups are great. You're getting more and more tension built, and overall, just an exceptional issue. But that's it for this week's Savage Saturday Comic Review. I hope you guys had fun. Please stay tuned at the end of the video for a word about our channel sponsor. And until next time, keep it casual. Attention all, use channel sponsor Rogue Trader at theroguetraderutah.com and my code KEEPITCASUAL for 10% off your comic cleaning and pressing needs. Remember, when submitting your books to be graded, use a trusted professional.